You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, if you follow our socials, you would have noticed that our merchandise shop is up and running just in time for Christmas. Not only do we have a variety of items with our logo on it, but we've got a pretty cool set of hunter and hunting shirts. We also have some pretty cool ideas to add to the list of products that are already available, so keep your eye out. To find the shop, head over to our Linktree, which is in the show notes, or Google Australian Hunting and Beyond Linktree, and you can access the store at the top button. Also, if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, we have been putting video episodes of the podcast up with some cool trail cam footage, pictures as we talk about it. So please check it out. And if you're there, make sure you subscribe. All right, guys, let's get into it. All right, he's back. Feel big, mate. Tassie is just, all right. So I've got to pick your brain because we talked about the snow hunt and there was a bit of sledging coming from you about my Princess Palace, and you hunt a fair bit in the snow. Obviously, being down in Tasmania, that's something you got to get used to. So I want some pointers because I dare say it's going to happen to me again, and that was my first experience of hunting in the snow. So, mate, your last hunt was in the snow. How'd that go?
Yeah, snow hunting in Tassie is a bit different because you get the snow and then you'll get like a polar blast of negatives, and that snow turns to ice, so it makes it a bit harder than typical snow hunts. I don't know what it's like up there, but I mean, you copped it bad by what you're talking about with the dumping you got, yeah. The collapses, and you know that's absolutely unreal. I'm thankful I don't really have to deal with that type of stuff. But snow hunting is probably the best hunting I think there is. There's nothing better. So, yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about that because I thought it was the worst thing ever.
Nah, I find it so much easier. You can find tracks. You can get underneath the trees, blend, like especially if we're in oil skins and things like that. I know certain areas you have to wear your high-vis orange and, all the gear. Luckily, where I go, not so much the case. I've got the oil skins, blend in with the trees and shrubs really nicely. So, but as soon as you get out there, first thing you're looking for is tracks, and you're just onto them like a dog. And you can kind of gauge how fresh they are depending on what the weather's doing. If it has iced over, that's a bit harder as well. But probably the best tips is try and find that tree line and blend, find out where they're going, sit down, wait. And just take your time. You can't rush these things, as you know. You got to be methodical. A lot of people try and keep walking, but you just stand out, especially in the snow. It just, you might as well have sirens going around you, So you didn't really get out much in the snow up there, though, did you?
Well, no, because we had to drop back down in elevation for a new camp. There was nothing really up where we were. So then the problem with it was when we returned, it was just so crunchy. Yeah. And there was a very limited sign. And I feel that because we got so much snow, I felt the animals just hunkered down, that there wasn't as much movement around as normal. It was just very, very odd because I returned to the same spot that I was there, and there was like one set of tracks, and I went to the same place the last time I was out and saw multiple deer. So it was sort of like everything just stopped moving up higher. So down lower, we were good. But that was our first experience hunting in the snow, and I would have approached it differently. I also feel that probably need to know the area a bit. So when it does snow, have an idea of what they actually do in the snow, because where we were was a couple of, it's kilometers before they could get under the snow line. So I can't see them going, 15 Ks to get out of the snow line.
No.
So they must just suck it up, but then that would be different hunting as well.
Yeah, so one thing I've learnt about snow hunting is they move in places you don't expect, and they move differently than what you would expect them to do. Interestingly, when I was first in the snow hunt, I kind of got sick of waiting. I was there for like 2-3 hours. I've seen tracks, but they jumped in and out tree lines. So I was like, okay, well, I've been here for a few hours. Time to kind of change it up a bit, go for a long walk. And funnily enough, I went for this massive walk, following tracks everywhere, and then didn't see nothing. Came back up to where I was sitting. No word of a lie, fresh tracks, right, probably 3 meters away. So yeah, you kind of go, well, this one's come like right out into the middle, wide open, so easy to find. Patience is a virtue, I think, in that scenario. But when you get into the snow hunting and that ability to see how they move, that just changes your, typical hunts. It gives you a better understanding of their movements. So it's very, very advantageous if you can get out and snow hunts and just even look around, not actually go for the hunt, but look around and learn about how these things are moving around, different animals, especially like wombats and kangaroo and stuff like that. So it's best thing you can do, I think, personally.
One of the things I did like about it was where we hunt, because of the bushfires, the regrowth is thick. So it's very difficult to move through. But because we got such a large dump of snow, and if you haven't heard episode 60, Snow Camp, we call it, we got hammered, and it was 30 centimeters in 6 hours. It's a lot of snow. What I did notice, though, is all that regrowth, when it got weighted down with snow on it, it just bent over. So the visibility actually increased in a lot of areas. Still, like, you're not going through it. And I know one of the boys tried to go through it and copped a couple of branches in the face once he knocked the snow off and it just sprung back up. But different, very different. And look, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. Beautiful snow. Like, it was just an awesome time to be out hunting, as most hunting always is. But that really just made it a lot more difficult. But I was moving a lot too, because the plan for the hunt was to try some different areas that we'd scouted. And I wanted to still have a look around with them in the snow, because I felt that it would probably, a couple of those hillsides that I wanted to glass were going to work still. But yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, it's funny, like, because having a foot worth of snow, it's not going to be easy for them to come out in the open. They're going to kind of sink, and they're not really going to like that too much. But they will hang around in amongst those trees where the branches and everything are kind of low to the ground. They'll be weaving in and out of there, moving around because there's less snow. That makes a hell of a difference in your scenario, but I don't think you're going to experience that type of dumping again. So next time, you're going to have that better opportunity to see that movement. And just, you got to deal with it. And walking in the snow, fresh snow, not the frosty snow, is so much better. You can gauge, the sound of what you're walking in, and be able to tell where the thicker snow is, so they're not going to be in those areas as much, I guess you could say. And they're generally going to be more along the tree lines, except for when you have those light dustings of snow, they'll just walk anyway. It doesn't bother them. But they're crafty. Like, you see them around the trees and those tiny little holes they squeeze under. It's like, how did you get through there? And that's what they do, especially in the snow time. They're sneaky as. And that's what makes it really interesting. But I think this year I've gotten three does in the snow, which was pretty good. But I was actually, one of them, I was about 3 meters away and shot it. It snuck up. Because we had wind as well as the snow, so the trees are moving. And, that was an unreal experience, because there was 2 of them there. And I used my lever action 300 WSM for my deer hunting in those areas. And, just seeing it 3 meters away underneath this tree, having a feed because the snow wasn't there. It was able to eat, and just waited and, took the first shot, and the second one ran and reloaded and went for the second one. I was like, nah, one's good enough for me at the moment. I'm happy with that. So we'll just sit there. But I'll tell you one thing that's good about the snow: makes cleaning your knife a lot easier. It's wash your hands in the snow, wash your knife in the snow. It's a good tool to have around you. Yeah.
Well, cleaning out the carcass as well once you've dropped the guts out, I think that would be very handy. Plus, the meat is not really going to spoil very quickly, is it? Like, it's that temp.
Definitely
it's just
not.
Nice.
Yeah, it makes life a lot easier, especially if you want to leave it there for a little bit and continue on, because it's that cold. as long as you put it belly down so it can get the rest of the juices out, you're not going to have any problems. Probably the worst part is actually carrying it back in the snow. It makes the journey a bit harder on your feet and your back because you're kind of trudging through that soft snow and not knowing where you're standing. And yeah, you got to be safe. You got to keep an eye out and kind of remember where you're going. Stand in your old tracks on the way back too. That makes a hell of a difference. It's there's so many good factors about snow hunting. You've got to experience it and really really enjoy it. I can't see any better hunting.
I do like what you said there, and I think you're very, very right in that the snow for me, what we had was unreal. I've had trail cams out for the last 2 winters prior to this one, and there's been nothing like what we copped. So it was a freak occurrence, which, hey, what an experience. It's cool, but I would love to just hunt in the snow just a little bit. So not having to trudge through it. But as you said, you can see prints. They're still out and about. The pick's still probably just poking through or they can get to it. I think that would make a good opportunity. So one day in the future, hopefully we'll get back out there and it won't be as snowy as last time. But they call it the Snowy Mountains for a reason, I suppose. So got to be mindful of that too.
Absolutely. And if you remember when on our last podcast, and I said that you're not really living unless you're fearing for your life, I guess that was at play in that scenario with these guys hunkering down and popping.
I'll blame you.
Yeah, well, but when you have things collapsing on top of you, I mean, that makes you fear a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know what that feels like because mine stayed strong. It was just withstanding. It was easy. It's just throw whatever you want at me. It's good.
Well, it may be a princess castle, but it's still a castle, so they're pretty strong.
That was pretty good. Mate, what is going on down there? So there's been a lot happen in the thing, and I wanted to get you on because I really get frustrated with media portrayal of hunting, especially when they get it so wrong some of the time. Now, not every journalist makes mistakes, but recently down there, that was absolutely insane about what was posted. And I'll go through it in a second and read it out, but what the hell?
Look, in this other time, ironically, when they're talking about the disinformation bill, I mean, how funny is that? But yeah, I can understand that unless you're a hunter or, in this scene, that it's easy to get caught up in a bit of a hype or, we've got a story here. But come on, guys, when you got photos, do some research. It's not that hard. Really disappointing with the media these days. And it only seems to be getting worse. I mean, they won't even reach out to any of us to verify anything because of that stigma that, the media has against people like us in the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party. And then they get it wrong. And then we have to call them out about it. So what do? They go and take it down. It didn't happen. It doesn't exist. It's not really good enough. What they should have done is put out an apology and say, look, we got it wrong. We're sorry. Because these types of things, every time the media gets something wrong about shooters or hunters, it becomes an agenda issue. They're always attacking us, and they use this as ammo every single time. And it's just not right. It's not good. It's not on.
All right. For those that haven't seen, because it did get taken down very quickly, and I'm glad that you were able to capture this, and I'd seen it from a few people, so it was going around, but it came out from the Mercury, and I'm just going to read the whole article because you really need to hear this, and I'll put the photos on the video of the podcast so you can actually see the images that were in the article, and I'll put bits and pieces of the article there too. I'm reading literally word for word here. So the heading is Animal Rescuer Appeals for Witnesses to Disgusting, Sickening Act of Cruelty on Dying Deer. An animal rescuer is calling for witnesses to a disgusting and sickening act on a fallow deer struck by a vehicle on the Midland Highway, and it says warning graphic content with the journalist's name, but I'll leave that out for the moment.
Just quickly too,
we get into the crux of it.
Got to stop you there. Interestingly, on the clickbait on Facebook, it actually had the title, I think it was Deer's Antlers Sawn Off While Still Alive or something like that. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's got it in here. So let's keep going here.
Yeah.
The motorist stopped to help the injured animal just outside Campbelltown and found him alive but slowly dying on Saturday morning. They called Bonorong, I think I said that right, Wildlife Sanctuary, who dispatched a volunteer to humanely put down the deer, but he died before the rescuer arrived. However, wildlife rehabilitator and rescuer Lindsay Sumpton said this call out was different. She did not attend the rescue herself, but has spoken to the woman who did. It was truly disgusting. It was heartbreaking. It was sickening, Miss Sumpton said. And they have a picture of the fallow deer with a bloody missing antler. And we'll talk about that in a second. When the rescuer arrived to assist the stag, someone had sawn off his antlers while he was still alive, ! Did they euthanize him? ? No. He had a broken leg and internal injuries, and they made a conscious decision to saw off his antlers. How absolutely inhumane, not to mention illegal. Miss Sumpton is appealing for anyone who saw the incident. And then NRE, which is Department of Natural Resources Environment Tasmania, Game Services, is being notified of this incident and a report has been made to the Tasmanian Police. However, the worst part about this is that without evidence of someone doing this disgusting act, this remains a report with no repercussions. Someone had to have seen this. Surely someone had a dash cam and noticed people on the side of the road doing this. Someone must have seen a car registration number that can be followed up on. Deer may be feral pests in Tasmania, but no animal deserves this. Well, you're going to struggle with dash cam footage because there was no one there sawing an antler off. For those listeners who may not know, and I'll be very surprised if you don't, being someone listening to a hunting podcast, our deer, especially fallow deer, they shed their antlers, and it is that time. So the car hitting it would probably have those antlers just fall off. And there's an amazing clip, I don't know if you've seen it, the moose shaking its antlers off.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah,
they've
that's
got the
cool.
drone footage of it. Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think we need to send this to the Mercury. Send that moose video to the Mercury and say, hey guys, guess what? I've got some footage. There's no person with a saw. What? It's so frustrating that, as you said, for our international listeners, there's a misinformation, disinformation bill going through our parliament that just got approved, mind you, in the first instance, and it's going into the second, that basically says the government chooses what's correct. Well, I mean, here's a perfect example, as you mentioned, Phil. They got it wrong, and they got it very wrong because they don't have the information. Their persuasive language in there, and at how disgusting all this, it's just completely wrong rhetoric.
Yeah, I can't believe that they didn't reach out to someone and go, what do you think about this? Reach out to a hunting organisation or conservation, anything, and say, here's a photo, what do you think about this? No, nothing. It was just a quick story to try and grab the attention of people who know no better, and it backfired extremely quick on them. It was taken down in less than 2 hours, and luckily I was able to grab that article before they even took it off their website. It's just poor journalism. I mean, come on. Just do a little better, guys, and stop attacking us. I'm going to hold on to this one for the next time they attack us hunters about anything to do with deer, because they're getting it wrong all the time. They won't listen. Or you go and talk to journalists. I spent 20 minutes on the phone with a journalist talking about the State of Environment report in Tasmania, and she was like, oh, what do you think about the report when it comes to deer? What do you think about the report when it comes to cats? I unloaded all the information, and she printed the story, and there was like one paragraph from me, and the rest of it was from, like the Greens agenda side of people. Where's the fairness in the media? You call someone up to ask questions and get information, and then you only print one little bit of it. Come on, guys. That's just not on. Yeah, what are we going to do?
Well, this is the issue, right? Hunters are a very easy target, and the media do come after us a lot. And I've got some big concerns here, not just with the media and the journalism, because as you said, this is extremely poor journalism. Like, that is basic. If you don't understand, as you said, reach out or speak to, or just research it yourself. Like, surely you could jump on there and type in, do antlers get shed from on deer, whatever, something along those lines, and you're going to get your answer, right? So at least then you are sitting there questioning, did this really happen? What's actually scarier for me personally is that you have wildlife volunteers who are out there who have absolutely no idea about the animals that they're supposed to be caring for or looking after or rescuing. And whether it be the person who attended or Lindsay Sumpton, I think her name was, you should know this, mate. If you are a wildlife sanctuary, someone who expresses that all their time and effort is dedicated to wildlife, but you don't know a basic thing like that in regards to deer, come on. That's ridiculous. And then this misinformation stuff.
Yeah. Like, they're going on about, their words, feral deer in Tasmania. Well, if they're so feral, then they should have had these experiences before. I mean, hello. And then on top of that, anyone who looks at that photo would be going, where's the saw marks?
Yeah.
Like, hello. It's absolutely incredible. And any blind Freddy could see that there's absolutely no saw marks. Obviously, this journalist might not have ever even used a handsaw or a hacksaw or anything in their life to actually see what happens to something when you cut it. Yeah, I can't make sense of it.
Look, in one is like I'm extremely annoyed and frustrated again that they've such poor journalism attacking hunters, and that's that generally is what happens. And you see a lot of the rhetoric out there anti-hunter, and a lot of it's just fake. And I think we're seeing the legacy media is what the terminology now is how bad they really are and how one-sided the journalism has got that poor that they're pushing an agenda or they're whatever their supporter base is what they're going to do. And I think we saw that in the US with what happened over there with the election and Donald Trump winning by an absolute landslide. And a lot of that, I think, on the back comes from X, and a platform that I think is amazing because you have free speech. And that really concerns me in this country, that we have a current prime minister wanting to change that and not be able to have free speech. And I dare say probably ban companies like X. I know they've taken a lot of pot shots at Elon Musk and things like that. A democracy is built on free speech. And here's a perfect example. If we could not publish or talk about or have that out on social media contradicting that article, but they're wrong. So, that it just doesn't add up. It's crazy to think. And as I said, if you're watching the video, you've seen the photos here. Like, how has someone never actually sawn something to be able to go, there's no saw marks there? You're right. Like, that's just like we teach kids that in high school, for crying out loud, when they do woodwork. It's one of the basic things. Maybe they don't maybe you guys don't do that down there in Tassie. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I've gone along the roads and seen a lot of tradies using their saws right next to their ute. So you're bound to see something being cut somewhere. Yeah. But it's interesting because, looking at what happened in America, and you're seeing all these dodgy things happening, like, holding a phone up that only has a camera app open when you're meant to be talking to someone that voted for you. And no one in the media even brings it up. It's all on X. And, that's the beauty that Elon's fighting for. And I've always advocated for freedom of speech. It's a fundamental right. And for the Prime Minister to try and introduce something that takes that right away, it's absolute garbage. And it's funny because you look at the past video, I don't know if you've seen it, where he was asked, I think it was on radio, if you had the ability to, do anything, and he said, get rid of social media. Well, here we are. This is what he's doing. All because, he doesn't like how he's portrayed on it, perhaps. I don't want to put words in his mouth because I might get sued next. But look, I think Elon's, standing his ground really good. And I think we need to stand behind him and others who, want to stand up for our rights, for freedom of speech, and the ability to even look after ourselves without being told how to do it, as we've seen in the past when it comes to medical issues. So I think America's probably on the right track, hopefully. I can't really see much going wrong at this stage, unless, of course, something happens before January, and I wish them all the best. I'd like to see a lot of the American podcasts kind of push Trump to get more land and ability to hunt. I know in certain states over there it's quite hard with the bureaucracy. I can't believe the forms that some of them have to fill out in certain states. It's absolutely unreal.
Well, I mean, you look at here, and this is an issue I've had here. Queensland, I should say, has no public land hunting. New South Wales, we do have state forest to hunt in, but national parks are closed. We spend a lot of money on deer culling and things like that. I know down in Tassie, you have access public land, but there's a lot of aerial culling going on and whatnot. But then you flip it and go, this is what concerns me about if the media are portraying it in one light and say this disinformation bill was to get ahead, is who makes the decisions? Because if that's the case, and I want hunters out there just to think about this, I know, a lot of people don't like the whole politics side, and I get that. But if that was the case where misinformation, disinformation was their discretion of what they push out, hunting's in big trouble because currently we do everything to possibly stop it. We spend money everywhere else rather than give hunters opportunities because it's more humane, it's et cetera, et cetera. We've seen that with the aerial culling, using shotguns, you name it. Their research tells us that. Man, what do you think there's going to be said about hunting when there is no right of reply to actually be able to say, no, here's the actual information and evidence? That's out the window. That's crazy. So whilst, I look at this and just go, man, so scary. And then we did a petition up here in New South Wales to try and get it debated about opening up some more private land, especially in national parks. And there were 6,000 signatures and that's it.
Yeah.
Now, that makes life very, very difficult. And I spoke about that when I was talking to Rick last time, going, man, that's not great. Like, hunters really need to start banding together and saying, hey, we need to stick together and get some access going on here and more access. So we're not wasting money, because that's what I feel aerial culling is. Now, I really do want to make it clear though, because I've had some people reach out and they like aerial culling, et cetera, et cetera. And that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Free speech. I'm all for it. For me, I want to make it clear I'm not keen on aerial culling on public land where it's taxpayer money. If you're a farmer and that is the route you would like to take, go for it. Yeah. If you're spending your own money to control deer from an helicopter through aerial shooting, okay, great. That's your property. That's your decision. All for it. If you want to use hunters, I would love that, to see that more, to be honest. But again, it's your property, your call. All for it. And I respect the farmers or property owners' decision in that. But when we talk about our public land, which should be for everybody to use, including hunters, why are we wasting taxpayer dollars when there's more than enough people that want to get out there and do the job? That frustrates me.
Yeah, look, and it goes well beyond that too, because if you actually look at the economic input from hunters, I don't know what it's like in other states. I know it's really big in New South Wales, but in Tasmania, shooters contribute, this is a government report number, $88 million plus. Now, if we had access to more land in outer areas, those communities will have a greater impact economically. So why aren't we doing it? Instead of shunning hunters and locking away places that they can go. And then on top of that, wasting millions and millions of dollars on aerial culling. And, I totally agree. If farmers want to have aerial culling on their property, even if it's government subsidized aerial culling on that farmer's property to control numbers, so be it. But stop wasting our money when we could be using hunters and contributing to the economy as opposed to taking it out. It absolutely makes no sense. We should be doing way better. And if we can't call that out after they try and push this, misinformation, disinformation bill, I'm so sick of saying that already, then what do we have? I mean, we're going to lose some of the greatest people we have advocating, like Aussie Reviews, Mark and Sam After Work, they're not going to have their content out there anymore. They're already suffering because of, shadow bans, I guess you could call it, or videos being taken down, posts being taken down, because they're questioning the logics of politics and the media behind it. So what are we going to have? And, you're saying about hunters banding together. No, hunters don't need to band together. All shooters, bow shooters, rifle shooters, shotgun shooters, duck hunters, sport shooters, you name it. We all need to band together and stop this, I don't duck hunt, so I don't really care, or I'm not a sport shooter, so I don't care. I can't be bothered with pistols, it's too much hassle, so I don't really care, and not stand up for each other. It's not good enough. We're not going to win and get what we deserve with that attitude. You don't see the Greens going, well, I don't agree with Sandra down the road. She may be a Greenie, so I'm not going to help her. They all band together. They all work with each other, even if they disagree. Why aren't we doing it? We have a lot more to lose in so many aspects, and we can be doing so much better. I mean, if we introduce like the game meat regulation changes I want to see in Tasmania, we can be donating food banks, charities. It doesn't just stop at our rights as hunters. It goes so much further into the community, and we need to keep pushing that. And if we have this misinformation, disinformation thing passed, then we're not going to be able to push for that, because they'll say that the wild game meat is unsafe to eat, and if you try and challenge that, you'll be kicked off any social media. We've got to fight back, and I think that the American election was a prime example of that fight back. And luckily, Elon was there to say, we want our free speech, so we're going to have it. And that's what we need to do here. And now the Prime Minister gearing up for an election, everyone's got to get together, ignore all the petty little things that are local area nonsense. Look at the big picture. Look at the long-term picture. Get it together, guys. We've got to fight this together. Every state needs to come together. Every club needs to come together. I don't care if you're SSAA or an independent range or Shooters Union, anyone, come together. Stop the egos and start looking after each other. I cannot say that enough. And, if you're unsure about how to do it, reach out. Reach out to Shooters Union, SSAA, your local gun clubs, hunting clubs. Find out how to help out. I had a bloke, actually, I've got to tell you about this. I had a bloke send me a message last night, and I was so happy when I read the message. He's like, hey man, I know you're really busy, but I just want to get some help to be better at trying to advocate. It's like, how do I write these letters? How do I understand these legislation changes? What do these things mean? And for someone to actually reach out and ask those questions, you're like, yes, finally, someone who's willing to have a go and stand up instead of just, clicking a like button. And I gave him all the information to go and research on his own. And I said, look, just reach out anytime. That's what we're all about. Anyone, if you're standing for elections like I do, or, you're an advocacy group, we're all there to help. We're not there to, just stand for ourselves. So reach out, ask the questions. How can I be better at advocating for firearms owners? It's not that hard to send a message, and it's not that hard to send an email to your local politician. Harass them. Get onto them. What are you doing for me? If I don't get back to you, vote for someone who will stand up for you. It's not that hard. And we've definitely seen that change in America. And I look forward to seeing some of those changes come through.
Well, look, again, I call out everybody out there, the misinformation, disinformation bill. Contact your local member who represents you and tell them your feelings on it. So you, as their constituent, you need to be able to say, here's my voice. And if there's enough people saying we don't agree with this, they've got to bring it to the table, and there's at least got to be that discussion. And if enough people do that for them to go, hold on, we can't push this through, it's not good enough. I know I've done it to my local guy, Angus Taylor, and said, hey, listen, this needs to get addressed ASAP. This is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of this. And gave him examples of where people have got things wrong. And no one's perfect. I get that. But that's why it's so important to be able to have freedom of speech and say, hey, this is not accurate. this isn't the case. This has changed because life is dynamic. Health is dynamic. Everything is fluctuating. We learn more. We have different opinions. We have experts that have different opinions, and we need to be understanding of that. Hunters, I don't know if you caught it, but I think it was on the New South Wales State Forest Hunters Facebook group. And a gentleman posted on there about he saw in a state forest, in a camping ground, the remains of an animal, a deer that had been shot, and a heap of spent cartridges. And he put it up there as like a public service announcement to say, guys, this is a bad look. We need to be better. If you see this or your mates are doing it or whatever, call it out and say it's not appropriate, because stuff like that is going to impact us and put us in a negative light. Yeah. I completely agree with that. Completely agree. Let's make that very, very clear. Unbelievably, we had a lot of people having a go at him about it. And I don't understand why, personally. There were people that say this is just giving the antis evidence. Well, no, the fact that it's been done in the first place is giving anti-hunters evidence. It's giving public evidence. It's in a campground, so it's used by non-hunters as well. Yeah. That's a bad look. I'm sure it's very easy to get a photo. And I talked about that actually in snow camp, that when we went back down to town, the town knew that our gear was still up there because it had been destroyed. So it's not like you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes because you didn't take the photo and let it go. If it's there, it's there. Let's be clear. And a heap of people just, who cares? Man, it's so frustrating when we're supposed to love the bush. We're supposed to do this, and you still have people in the community that have that attitude. It's not a great look. And I think it's even a worse look when people aren't condemning those actions and you're almost saying it's acceptable behavior, which it most definitely isn't. It is a shared space. It's public. Have some respect. Make sure that you're doing things legally and don't leave rubbish. Like, how hard is it? I actually like to go the other way. And if you go out and you see rubbish, pick it up.
Yep.
Like, don't, go above and beyond to portray hunters as people who are genuinely passionate about the outdoors, and we care about nature, because I know I definitely do. Hell, I even stopped a young bloke today. He was using a stick trying to hit a galah and kill it. So I intervened. Now, like, some people don't understand that because I'm a hunter. Hey, it's about ethics. It's about morals. That is completely wrong. It's illegal too because it's a native animal. Man, come on. Like, just be the best person you can be and represent hunters in a good light. And if you see something, don't be afraid to call it out. Come on, just be better.
Yeah, look, I can understand a couple of those things, putting it up there and giving the ante some ammo. But the fact is, he called it out with that picture. It wasn't just put up and put out there. I have actually put out a photo myself down here, not far from my house. There was like 3, I think, deer laying around, half hacked, like not even caved, nothing, just half hacked into, disgusting, right next to a waterway. It's actually near a very beautiful walking track as well. So a lot of people going past it, and I put it up there, and it was the same kind of response. It is mixed. You don't want to give them the ammo, but you got to call it out. If you don't call it out, we're not going to get better at it. And, I said, what an absolute waste, what a travesty. And right next to a waterway that flows right downstream to people's houses, all these aspects, I couldn't believe it. And luckily, someone who found out about it very quickly actually went up there, got them, boned them out, and put it up on Facebook saying free meat for dogs. So it was still used, and it was cleaned up, and good. Best thing ever to see. But it doesn't always happen.
Good on them.
And it's kind of like when you first reached out to me when I put up a photo, I think it was, of a skeletal remain of deer right next to a lake up after the aerial culling. And, I called that out because that was done with aerial culling from the government and going, well, this is against what they should be doing. irrespective, if they shot it and it ran, they're meant to chase it, so it should never have made it there. Or they've shot it right next to the waterway, which they're not meant to be doing, and left it to rot there. So either way, they're in the wrong. I called that out. And if we go down this path of this misinformation thing, no way could we call that out, especially a government department. And then, we've got to look at the other side too. If we try and call out each other, who's responsible there? Or will it just be taken down because we're being nasty about other people? Or will it stay up because we're attacking each other? We're attacking other hunters and they want that, or who knows where it's going to go. But honestly, that bloke who put that up, good on him for calling it out, I think, personally. And if you say, well, who cares? You're a part of the problem as far as I'm concerned. I've brought, car doors home from the lakes, steel wire, you name it, stuff that's dumped up there. Luckily, no one's dumped a car that I've seen, because I don't think I could fit that on my ute. But always leave it cleaner than how you found it. Like, I've taken up concrete slabs, 300 kilos worth of concrete slabs, to build a safer fire pit at a lake, rather than just using rocks. I've made things safer. I've made things cleaner. I always take a rake. Anything that's around, always clean up. And that's what we should all be doing, because if we don't do that, and there's a mess left behind, then we see more and more of these boulders put around the place, more tracks closed off. I've seen New South Wales had, I think, a really massive track closed off because of rubbish and destruction and things like that. Come on, guys. Just do the right thing. Look after the place. What are you doing? You're just going to ruin it for everyone else, and then you're going to complain, well, that's closed. I don't know why they closed it. Well, you're the reason. We're not meant to suffer because of your actions.
And look, let me be clear. I also think it is the very small minority of people. So the problem is that we all get tarred with the same brush. And that's something that, especially when there's an agenda behind it, as we've seen with legacy media, and you saw with the article that we spoke about, there's a definite angle that they're wanting to push, and it's not that in support of hunting. So we've got to be on our game. And we've got to make sure that we're doing things as best we can to represent everybody in the best possible manner. It just is what it is. And, I really hate to sound like I'm preaching or lecturing, because that's not the intended way I want to be. But we do need to be better and make sure we limit this. Is it going to happen? Yes, it is. There's always bad apples. We're never going to be able to change that. But the more we get that aren't, and the more we call something out, it might just be enough for someone to go, you know what, I shouldn't do that. Or next time doing something, how hard is it to drag the animal away? How hard is it to pick up some spent cartridges? They're not that difficult. We're not asking somebody to, go spend a 3-week period out in the bush cleaning it up. We're saying, if you put it out there, just pick it up. Yeah. Just be mindful of other users. Don't leave an animal somewhere where it can rot and smell near a campground where there's going to be people that aren't hunters cooking food, trying to sleep. Like, that's just, it's common courtesy. We're not even asking you to go above and beyond. We're just saying have some damn courtesy for your fellow person and your fellow outdoors person who we want to have our back. And, that's one of the things I like getting you on, because I am a big fan of your advocacy, and you know that, obviously. Not only are you running down there for Shooters, Farmers, Fishers Party, since we last had you on, there's been another big announcement. You're the president of Shooters Union Tasmania, which, congratulations. Great
Thank
stuff.
you.
Again, amazing advocacy. You're doing a bloody lot for Tasmanians, mate. So I hope they're all very thankful that they've got you. What else has been going on down there?
The government doing its thing, I guess you could say. So if everyone remembers, like the antique firearm, at the beginning of the year, exemption number 4 was cancelled, and they tried to bring in all these new rules and regulations, because it's not legislation like everyone was led to believe. There's no laws involved at the moment. That since that was cancelled, we've been fighting against how they've been trying to go with licensing and stuff like that, because they're antique firearms. So they're basically saying, if you have an antique firearm, you need a license and blah, blah, blah. Now there's no consultation paper out, and I'll just bring this up because last we talked, we went over a letter I had from the minister, and that was, that there's going to be no licensing requirements. You don't have to do a firearm safety course. You have to just provide contact details, how it's stored, no engraving or stamping on the antique firearms, which value. Process
No
will be
one's gonna
free.
do.
Yeah, and how display in glass cabinets and so on and so on. So they've put this consultation paper out, and it's basically just that. And I'll send you a link so you can actually put it up on the screen so people can see it. Now, for a consultation paper, it is pathetic. If you want people to put in what their thoughts are, provide at least a little bit of what the framework for the legislation is going to look like. Give us something to actually comment on, because that's not good enough. How is that going to actually be added into the Act? How's it going to affect the Act? How's it going to change other things in the Act because of that wording for antique firearms? All these little things. Yes, it hasn't been tabled into Parliament, so that'll be another type of consultation. But for an initial, they've had, 11 months, 10, 11 months to come up with a single-page consultation paper. That is pathetic. And in reality, no other state in Australia has these types of requirements. They're going too far here. And hopefully we can kind of tell them that, because not even Western Australia, and for those American listeners, Western Australia is an absolute nightmare when it comes to firearms laws, saying that, you can only have a certain amount of guns. Farmers can only hand out a certain amount of permits, even though there's thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometres of farmland. So in Tasmania, we are having a hard time, but in different ways. So the antiques firearms, one of them, and Western Australia hasn't even touched that. Meanwhile, they're going after everything else. So make sense of that. So hopefully everyone in Tasmania will put in a submission and say this is nonsense, show us what it's really going to look like before we can comment. Definitely won't happen, but we can try, So there's been that. And then the big one is they've put a consultation paper out for the firearms license application. I have heard it on a couple other podcasts being talked about. Unfortunately, they haven't quite got all the information out there. I'll send this out to you too, so you can kind of scroll on the video and put it up there for people to understand. I'll do a bit of a run through. So they ask for your general information, and then they're asking for a next of kin. I don't know why, considering they already have that type of stuff on file, whether it be your medical file or your driver's license. So that's a bit of a questionable one. And then they ask if your next of kin has also ever been known by any other name. I don't understand that. Has your next of kin ever lived in another Australian state or overseas? Come on, guys. Then they talk about, just the general reasons for having a firearm. Then they go into your history. Have you ever held or applied for a firearms license in any other state? They're kind of general questions anyway. Most states have that, I believe. Have you ever been refused? Well, they should know that. You're a government department. If you're doing the checks on us to see if we're a fit and proper person, you should know. Have you ever had a firearms license or permit cancelled? Same thing. Then we're getting into the tick box section. Have you been charged with an offensive crime? Been found guilty or pleaded guilty to an offensive crime? Now, that's a bit questionable, because we can talk about minor charges here that probably aren't even relevant. Say someone 30 years ago, when they were a teenager, they got done drink driving or something like that, you're still going to have to say yes. Have you had a restraint order, police family violence order, or any other orders made against you? Been protected from a person by a restraining order, police family violence order or family violence order, been subjected to a firearms prohibition order in Australia, or an equivalent to any other country. And this was actually interesting. The boys on another podcast, Politics Reloaded, I think it was, they made a good point. They actually said that certain countries automatically have a firearms prohibition order. So you can't have one. So if you come to Australia, where you have the ability to get a firearms license, but because you grew up in another country where it's law that you're not allowed to have one, do you tick the box? I'm not sure where that one really goes. That's a really good one to find out there. Have you been a party involved in the Child Protection Order, National Personal Protection Injunction in any other state or country? So now we're getting into the really good stuff. Mental and physical health. Mental health conditions. If we look at the statistics out there for Australia, I think probably more than 50% can say yes, depending on the scope. A neurological condition, but not limited to ADHD, autism, brain injury, dementia, epilepsy, fainting, insomnia. It just keeps going on. Tourette's, I mean, come on. Intellectual disability, physical disability. What? So our athletes who have a physical disability in the Commonwealth Games and Paralympics, there's a problem with them? I mean, if they have the ability to do it, then why are you asking? A sensory disability, sight and hearing impairment, I think that affects 3/4 of Australians. Drug or alcohol-related problems, any other physical or mental conditions that may impede your ability to exercise reasonable and responsible control over fire. That's the only question that's relevant, I think, and that's where it should be limited to. They already have the ability to checks and balances. They're meant to be deeming you a fit and proper person. What are we doing all their work for them? What are they there for? Attempted suicide or self-harm, attended an appointment with a psychologist or psychiatrist. Now, this is a big one because a lot of government workers in like prisons or hospitals or police, firemen, ambulances, you name them, they have generally going to be subjected to some pretty horrific things, and they are given, the ability to see psychologists or anything like that. Why are we targeting that? Why are we going after that? And that's ever in your life. It's not in the past couple of years. That's your whole life. So if you're a teenager and you...
So what does the question say?
It says, have you ever attended an appointment with a psychologist or psychiatrist?
Yeah, well, a first responder, we talk about in first responding is that you debrief. And some of that debriefing can be with a professional. Yeah, that is a very tricky question.
It's a very slippery.
What happens if you saw a counsellor at school? We talk about, people going through puberty is a very difficult time for a lot of people. What you spoke to a school counsellor or a psychologist in school, and that now you have to disclose because it says ever. That doesn't mean that as an adult who's 40 years of age, that still impacts your life. Very interesting that that's worded like that.
Yeah, and, beyond the fact of how far does it go, the biggest issue that I have with these types of questions, right, is our primary producers, for an example. They are getting screwed by, pressures for the industry with costs, supply issues, pressure from the big chains to supply goods at a certain price, all these issues, the weather not giving them good crops or a bad pest season. So a farmer wants to get some help, right? And we go to the pub, we go to restaurants, wherever like that, and we see signs, Beyond Blue, seek help. The government is always pushing it for us as people to go and seek help. And they're saying there's nothing wrong with seeking help. You got to look after yourself, got to look after your mental health. So these farmers go to their doctor and go, look, I'm struggling a little bit. I don't know if I just need to get some things off my chest or, what do I do? I'm overwhelmed. Now, doctors in Tasmania have an obligation to fill out a form and send it to Firearms Services. That they know that this person has firearms and they may have mental health issues. What happens next? The next day, Firearms Services send some officers around to pick up their firearms, which is their tools. It's not just a recreational thing, it's their tools. It's a part of what they do day in and day out. So then what happens? They're going to be stressed out knowing that they're going to be spending the next 6 to 24 months trying to get through the courts to get their firearms license back. And on top of that, have to go through an assessment, which another bloke reached out to me about. It cost him $900 in 6 months to get this assessment done, to be deemed that he was a fit and proper person to get his firearms back. And he said it was the most humiliating thing he had to go through. The questions on that list was just humiliating. How's that good for anyone, with their mental health? It's absolutely obscene.
Well, further to that, when you talk about them using it as a tool, farmers need it to, eradicate pests on their property, which can impact their livelihood. So it is a must-need tool. To them not being able to have it, if they're under financial pressures, then you need to access services to do it because you no longer have your firearms. We know that mental health amongst farmers it is a very difficult, challenging job where there is ups and downs. There's good years and there's terrible years. There is a lot of things that are out of your control. Yeah. I am very much with you that we should be supporting them for their mental health, not then putting this in to say, okay, we're going to use it to take away your firearms license. Yeah. That doesn't make sense to me because you're making it more difficult for them. The other scary thing about that, and the scary thing about those questions, and I know it's been talked about with Western Australia, and for our international listeners, it's interesting. I had an American bloke reach out the other day saying, I didn't even know Australians could have firearms. So we can, but it is legislated, and depending on the state, very heavily. We have some unbelievably dumb laws, like here in New South Wales, that we have an appearance law. It doesn't actually matter on the firearm if it looks scary, even though it can do the exact same thing as something that doesn't look as scary. One will be banned and one is completely safe to have. So we are very unique here, and for whatever reason. That is almost, for me, going the opposite direction, and people who are potentially needing help, maybe that's scared to reach out and get help in fear of losing their firearms license, fear of losing their hobby, fear of losing their escape or their, their passion, what they love doing, that they might not seek help, which could further exacerbate their issues and make it worse. Like it really doesn't seem to be a proactive good thing. And I mean, we all want safety in the community and we all want firearms owners to be law-abiding citizens. I think everyone's on board with that. I don't think anyone would argue against that. For me, I don't know if this is a step in the right direction. It potentially is a step in the opposite direction where people are more fearful for accessing help due to repercussions. And I've got a mate like that. Not a mate that wanted to get his firearms license, but he has ups and downs with his mental health, and he's seen psychologists and been diagnosed, and he is worried he can't get his firearms license. So it's a very tricky element to go through.
Yeah, and look, I've got to just read this next little bit. If you answered yes to any of the mental and physical health questions, you must include all information in relation to the matter with your application. Information will generally be required from a medical practitioner, such as a specialist in the relevant area or your GP. Firearm services can provide you with a document to take to a medical practitioner to guide the information they provide. Now, this, again, as an example for farmers, they have to probably drive thousands of kilometers to get to a doctor that might see them at a reasonable time. And then, are you going to expect that doctor to take on that liability? Because I think these days with insurance, with medical practitioners, they cannot even accept liability if given the choice. So why would they do that? It makes no sense. And I really don't think this is the right way to go down. And honestly, everyone out there who's listening, don't be afraid to go and get help. Go out there and look after yourself. If anything happens, if you are a firearms owner and you go and get help and anything happens, reach out to the likes of us at Shooters Union or, any other lobbyist like probably SSAA, or go and see one of your ministers or local representatives and say, look, I'm only trying to get better in myself, or I'm just struggling a little bit. There's no need for me to be punished. not a danger to the public. We are there to help you in those types of scenarios, and that's why we have the Shooters Union membership out there. Also, the hunting insurance and stuff like that too. But we're there to help you. We're there to stand up for you and your rights. So don't be afraid to go and get help. That has to be, number one. Look after yourselves. And if something did happen, just know that we're there for you as best we can be. We do have, legal services and those types of things as well. So I just need to stress that.
100%. I mean, nobody wants anyone to suffer through mental health. And if you are struggling, go and seek help. That's more important than anything. And no one should have to fear losing their licenses for that, for being proactive and doing it. As you said, it's mixed messages coming from our government. We have some amazing organisations out there like Black Dog Institute, Lifeline, all those things there. And to then cast a shadow of a doubt on accessing those services it's contradictory, but it's also scary, and I can understand people, but very much agree with your sentiment there is that reach out, always seek support. So I think that's a really good message to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I want to point out too that this license application is to deem you a fit and proper person, which is very subjective depending on who is actually approving your application, right? So we have to go through all this rigmarole, if it gets passed, to be deemed a fit and proper person. But meanwhile, we have people sitting in Parliament who are not scrutinised like this in any way, making legislative changes that affect our lives, especially vulnerable people. So I personally am calling that we introduce a fit and proper persons test for people, members of Parliament. Because if they want to go down this route, then why can't we have the same for them? They have the ability to do a lot more damage than one person. So I think that's a reasonable request, personally. And for those in America, we have to be deemed a fit and proper person, which means, you haven't done any really bad things before you can get a license. And there's no set framework on how that works anywhere. So there's no checklist of, this has to be okay, this has to be okay. There's none of that. It's very subjective. And one person gets to decide that. No, I don't think that's good enough.
It's a system that definitely needs some work. So hopefully one day we'll get it right here and improve in how we're doing these things. But Anything else going on down there before we wrap up?
Yeah, we've got Bushfest coming up, which is a nice little get together at Bothwell. So it's like a bit of a country thing, sales, food, information. That's really cool to get out. So we are blessed with having those little almost festivals, you want to call them. Everyone gets out there. Last year the Army were there and they had some really nice vehicles there. I just wanted to buy one of them. It's like a massive Unimog. I think it had like 10 wheels on either side. It's unreal. So yeah, I'm going to be there for that. That's on the weekend of the 23rd. So it's only like 2 weeks away. So there's a lot to prepare for that. Yeah, other than that, we're coming up with some good trout fishing weather. Can't wait to get out. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think deer season's going to let me do anything more this year, so I'm going to have to hold out for some snow hunts next year, unfortunately. But I think Tasmania's got enough going on at the moment when it comes to our issues. They're the two big ones, and hopefully we don't have anything else come our way. So we'll get through these consultations, which close in 2 weeks. So everyone get in, get that done. But after that, get out there, enjoy some weather, and get fishing, get hunting, go forward driving, enjoy time with the family. Christmas time coming up. Get out there, be healthy, be active. So hopefully we have a good summer. I don't know what you're going to be doing up there. Hopefully not getting too sunburnt while you're walking around in the scrub, maybe.
Mate, I've got a couple planned to get out in the heat. I'm not a massive fan of hunting in the heat, more for meat spoilage, but definitely keen to get out amongst it. So I'll definitely do that. And I did announce a croak camp for next April. So if anyone's interested, send us a message. It's not going to cost anything. It's in public land. So as long as you got your R license and you can book in. So just to get people together, bunch of good-minded people that want to get out hunting and whatnot and just have some fun as a group. That I think that will be amazing. So if you are interested, let us know. So I think I'll probably get out and scout some areas for that over the summer period and hopefully do a hell of a lot of fishing. So I know my kids are into me to get out fishing, so that's where I'll probably target.
Yeah, I think the boy's going to be onto me pretty hard to get back up to the lakes and get them trout because he likes to show me up. Good on him too, because he has done a couple of times and not going to lie, it does hurt a little bit, but you got to be
proud as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and taking those special moments. So, but I'm hoping that we're actually really lucky. Some of our areas around the lakes, we can go off a little bit and go hunting, and so might pick up a
nice
wallaby or something like that because you only got to drive 10-15 minutes from certain lakes and you're in a nice little hunting zone. So that'd be cool. But I'm also pushing for more public access in Tasmania for hunters because we have sustainable timbers, which is like where they do all the logging and regrowth and pine plantations and so on. So they have a rotating system. It'd be really good to know if we can actually start getting up into those areas because they know they're going to be logging 3-4 years. So in that time, no one's going to be there. Let's let hunters in there. Let's get them in there and get some more economics happening up in those areas that haven't been accessed before. So many small communities that could do with it, small shops and the old eggs on the side of the road. You support them. How good's that?
Well, it's the New South Wales State Forest model, isn't it? And it works a treat. So crazy that we don't do that wherever else.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Queensland. They've got it so rough with no public land hunting.
Oh,
they've just had their election, so hopefully someone's going to be pushing for that. I reckon Shooters Union might give them a little nudge and say, come on, guys, it's about time. But, you got to push pretty hard to get these types of things happening, especially these days. You try and get something happening and the media picks up on it and then they're like, oh, shooters want more land to run around. And it's really, really difficult.
Yeah. Dangerous, scary.
Yeah, isn't it? Real dangerous.
Oh, well, you know what? I mean, we just got to keep doing the best we can and keep portraying, or encourage all listeners out there, keep portraying us in a good light and doing the right thing. And that's all we can do and be vocal about it. And so. Yeah. All right, Phil, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Always great to chat to you. And as I said, love your advocacy down there. Tassie is lucky to have you fighting for the rights of shooters and hunters. So, mate, keep it up. Listeners, I hope you have got something out of the episode and bye for now.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyond. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.